Every doll needs some classic outerwear to complete their travel ensemble. In today's sewing tutorial, we'll walk through the construction steps for the classic trench coat from the Entrenched in Style pattern. This pattern was produced in collaboration with the Virtual Doll Convention for the Wild subscription box. If you're interested in learning more about the Virtual Doll Convention and the Wild subscription, I'll leave a link to them in the description below. Let's go ahead and get started. Here we have the new Nema doll modeling the coat that we'll be working with today. This coat is called Entrenched Style. The coat includes 12 pieces as displayed here. We'll be making the exterior portion of the coat out of this beautiful gold material, and I've chosen this plaid to be the lining. The first step in our construction is to grab our curved pieces and take some small clips in towards the curved edges. Our sewing will begin with the back piece. We'll place it right sides together and sew the center back seam from the neck edge right down to the vent. Before pressing the center back seam open, we'll take our scissors and we'll clip from that corner in towards the seam allowance. With the center back seam pressed open, we'll take both of the vent sections and press them over to the right when you're looking at the back side of the coat. From here, we'll grab our front sections, place it right sides together to the back of the coat, and sew the shoulder seams. With the shoulder seams pressed open, we'll place the coat right sides together, front and back, and sew the side seams. Next, we'll grab our sleeve pieces. We'll take the upper sleeve and the lower sleeve, place them right sides together, and sew that seam. After pressing that seam open, you're going to turn the cuff edge of the sleeve up 1/4 inch and give that a press as well before sewing the additional seam. Before attaching our sleeves to the coat, we're going to prepare the belt loops. To create some nice belt loops, you'll take that long piece and fold it in half with wrong sides together and give it a press. Next, you'll take one of the raw edges and fold it in to meet the press line. You'll continue to fold that over, give it a press, and fold it again one more time. To hide the raw edges, you'll actually unfold part of the belt, tuck the exterior portion to the inside so that both raw edges are meeting at that fold line, and then fold it in half again. From here, I'll take it over to the sewing machine and give it a quick top stitch. With our belt loop strip completed, we'll cut two 1.5 inch pieces. We'll cut 6 additional 1 inch strips out of the remaining belt. As you can see on the coat that Nima is wearing, we're going to add one of the loops right to the top of each of the shoulders. We'll grab the two 1.5 inch pieces, place it at the top of the shoulders on the coat, and baste it in place. To get the sleeves attached to the jacket, we're going to turn them right side out and sew them in the round. You'll take your scissors and take some small clips in towards the curved edge of the armhole opening, as well as around the sleeve opening. In looking at the anatomy of the sleeve, you'll see that the upper sleeve is the wider portion of fabric. The lower sleeve is actually a narrower portion of fabric, and this is the side seam. To get the sleeve sewn in place, we'll place it to the inside of the jacket with the right sides together, matching that side seam. Once you have the side seams lined up and the sleeve pinned to that seam, you can take your fingers to the inside of the sleeve and walk it around the inside of the armhole opening. Another option, if you're concerned about this step, is to baste the sleeve in place with a needle and thread. You'll want to lay it on the sewing machine bed with that side seam up, and then continue to sew all the way around until you meet that seam again. With right sides together, we'll pin one collar piece to each collar riser and get the two pieces sewn together. With the collar riser and the seam allowance pressed down, I'm going to quickly top stitch right along that seam. With the top stitching detail in place, I'm going to place the collar sections right sides together and sew up and around the full collar, leaving the neck edge unsewn. We'll clip and trim into that seam allowance, turn the collar right side out, and give it a press. Next, we'll baste the two pieces together at the neck edge. At this point, you also have the option to top stitch around the entire width of the collar. To get the collar attached to the coat, you'll take some small clips right where you put that base stitch, just to ease the collar in place. You'll match the center of the collar to the center back seam of the coat, pin it with right sides together, and baste it together. Before basting it in place, it is good to check that you have an equal amount of fabric past the finished edge of each collar side. After basting, you want to check under the collar to make sure that you didn't create any unnecessary tucks or puckers, and from there we'll move on to the next step. Off camera, I completed the lining to the coat in the exact same way that I constructed the exterior portion. Before we move on to the next step, I'm going to grab those belt loops and I'm going to apply a little bit of fray check to each of the raw edges just to make sure that those don't fray going forward. And then we'll get the additional details for the coat sewn up before we sew the two pieces together. The additional details include making the belt, the faux pockets at the front of the coat, as well as the straps that appear at the wrist. With our detailed pieces turned and pressed, we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and quickly top stitch them, and then we'll get them attached to the coat. With my heat erasable marker, I marked the position of the pocket on the front of the coat. I'm going to take the raw edge of the pocket, pin it to the front of the coat, and sew it in place. With the needle and thread, I'll tack the corners of the pocket down. For the next step, we'll take our coat lining, we'll place it right sides together to the coat and sew all the way around the coat right to the hem edge of the vent on both sides. With the lining sewn to the coat, you'll check both sides. If everything looks to be good, you'll clip and trim in towards the seam allowance, and we'll turn our coat right side out through the back vent. With the coat turned and pressed, we have 2 more steps before we attach those final details. First, we'll take a needle and thread and attach the sleeve lining to the inside of the sleeves, and then we'll actually fix the back vent. To do the vent, as you can see here, it's going to have a flap that overlaps that under vent. We're going to turn the right back opening under 1/2 of an inch, and we're going to turn the left back opening under 1/4 of an inch, give it a press, and then finish it with a needle and thread. With our lining attached to the coat at the back vent, you can go ahead and run a quick stay stitch right along that vent as you see on the coat here on Nema. Our last and final step to complete our coat construction before we actually can belt it and put the straps at the wrist is to apply our belt loops. As you can see from the final photographs, Ellowyne is definitely entrenched in style. This versatile coat can easily be played up or played down based on your fabric choice, adding buckles or even decorative buttons. If you have any questions about the construction of the Entrenched in Style coat, please list it in the comment section below. If you're a fan of Ellowyne and Nema, I encourage you to check out the Virtual Doll Convention for information about the upcoming Tonnerfest 2024. Tonnerfest is an exciting event that's taking place during the month of October, both online and culminating with an in-person event. Thank you guys so much for your time and for watching. I hope you enjoy the new pattern, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.